Hi, this is Bob Roth, Managing Partner and Co-Founder of Cypress Home Care Solutions. Since 1994, we have been providing in-home supportive care services for our older adult population right here in Phoenix, Arizona. Since 2014, we've been bringing you a show on Money Radio called Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. In case you miss our show that airs every Friday at noon, you can catch it right here on our podcast called Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. So when you get a chance, listen in and enjoy the show.
It's time for Health Futures with Cypress Home Care Solutions, Bob Roth. This is Arizona's only show dedicated to providing you with expert advice on how to live a longer, healthier, and happier life. To learn more, call 602-264-8009. That's 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Bob Roth.
Good afternoon. You're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. I'm your host, Bob Roth, and it must be Friday, and it is indeed Friday. It's the last Friday of June. What the heck? Half the year's already over. Time is literally flying by. If this is the first time you're tuning into our show is about how our older adult population can live a healthier, happier life. How do they do that? They do that by listening right here at Money Radio, 1510 AM, 105.3 FM, or the World Wide Web, moneyradio1510.com. We're also podcasting now, so if you are on podcast, you can find us under Health Futures, and we ask you to like us. We ask you to give us a review, and please recommend us. So I have in the studio with me, via technology, thanks to technology, I've got some friendlies from the home care biz. And I'm really proud to have them here on the show. They're friends of mine. I have one individual I go back 15 years on, Andrew Dubler, and his business partner, Gary Skole. They both were here on the show back in 2014 in November. So my math tells me that is almost 11 years. Gary made a cameo appearance during COVID, June of 20, but I haven't had Andrew on, and I haven't had Andrew and Gary. So Andrew and Gary, Andrew Dubler, Gary Skole from AlzBetter and Home to Stay Home Care. Welcome to Health Futures.
Hi, Bob.
Great to be here. Thanks, Bob.
It's good to have you guys back. You know, I get to see you guys every once in a while at conferences, but I mean, I don't get you guys for the next 40 minutes, which is really cool because we get to talk about a lot of the things that you're doing. So, you know what? I think it would be really good because I know you guys, if we could tee up for our audience a little bit about both of you guys. And I'll just put it out there. Andrew and I met back in 2009, 2010 when he was getting started and started up his company called Home to Stay. And he was looking for some guidance and consultancy and reached out to our mutual friend, Stephen Tweed. And Stephen Tweed put him in touch with myself, and I assisted. I didn't help. I assisted him. He did a lot of the heavy lifting. I assisted him in getting his home care agency started. That was 2010, right, Andrew?
That's right, and you're too modest, Bob. You did more than assist. You helped, and I wouldn't be where I was if it wasn't for your support.
Well, you know what? Since we're starting with you, can you give us a little bit of background and what really brought you into home care? And then maybe you can transition and talk about your partnership with Gary. And then, Gary, I would love for you to give some background. You know, a lot of people say to me that I'm the godfather of home care. No, you, Gary Skole, are the godfather of home care. You've been doing this a long time and doing it very well.
All right.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'll give you the elevator version, and I'll take you up to when Gary and I got together on the home care side. So I had a career. Depends how you define success, but I guess some would say a successful career in specialty chemicals. I was doing that for 15 years, managed Europe for 5 years, managed Asia for 5 years, then ran the company for 5 years. And but even, when I was there and things were going very well, it was a very, I used the term at the time, empty career. Success, what success looked like was sending full containers of our products to Asia and Europe, and it felt good, but it just didn't scratch that itch of wanting to do more. And I didn't know it at the time, but I guess what I always wanted to do was marry my work with a mission. And so I was searching. I knew there was more out there. And there was a front page article on the right-hand side of the Wall Street Journal that, actually left-hand side, that talked about the growing need for in-home senior care, and it was focusing on the franchises that were coming into the industry. Specifically, Right at Home was one of the franchises. And I didn't even know this industry existed. And it really piqued my curiosity because I did work in adult daycare. My parents had helped start up an adult daycare, as an attorney and a nurse from a high level, and I worked there. And then I also worked in the field working with individuals living with developmental disabilities. And when I saw that article, I thought back that, I was really happiest when I was working and helping others. So it was from that time that, the idea that Home to Stay was born. And I initially looked and kicked the tires on some franchise systems. But at the advice of my brother, he said, you really don't want to do a franchise. So I pivoted and wanted to do an original concept. And Stephen Tweed, who I didn't know at all, was very kind and took my phone calls and gave me some advice. And one of the people he pointed me towards was Bob. So Bob and I connected, and, Bob did a great job of explaining the industry. And I went out to work with Bob twice in Arizona, and then Bob came out here to South Jersey at least twice, where we spent time together, and started Home to Stay. And it's been a wonderful, wonderful, rewarding experience over those last 15 years. It reminds me a little bit of the Ralph Waldo Emerson quote that says that if you could help one person live a little easier, breathe a little easier, then you've been successful. And, the work that we've done at Home to Stay, it's not to say it's not without its challenges. Anyone in home care knows how difficult it is. But the amount of people that we help every single day is just such a great feeling. And being able to, combine that work with a mission is just, for me, a beautiful thing. So I was in the industry for about 14, 15 months. There was an owners group where about 5 or 6 independent agencies would get together for breakfast, and they would talk about the industry. Some would say lament and, talk about different regulations, different caregiver issues. And Gary and I met at that group. And, I would say that we probably had the most in common in that group. We took it both very serious. And it was around that time that Gary was formulating and coming up with the idea of AlzBetter, dementia care management. And at a high level, Gary asked if he could show me the program. He said, it's not to sell it to you. I just want to get your opinion. And I remember when I hear you because I just invested $5,000 in the dementia program, so I'm not interested, but I'd like to hear what you have to offer. And he showed me what he had to offer, and I was blown away. I remember I said, it's brilliant. And having kicked the tire on other dementia programs, I really liked what it had to offer. And it was from that meeting that we decided to combine our agencies and then create a new company, called AlzBetter. Gary had already had the name, that he would run AlzBetter and I would run the agencies. And that was about 13 and a half years ago.
Wow. What a great journey. And you and Gary have been together for 13 and a half years on the mission of Home to Stay, because Gary, as I understand it, took his home care business and slid it in and partnered with you under that banner.
Correct.
And you partnered with Gary on the AlzBetter side. So we got just about a minute here before we go and take a break. But Gary, I want you to tee it up. Give me a little bit about your background, and when you hear the music, we still have about 30 seconds, and we'll probably pick it up on the second segment.
Okay, terrific. Yeah, so I've been
in the home care business for quite a long time. This July 21st will be my 36th year. Been doing it's funny because I sort of did it fresh out of college. I started my company, and it was for seniors, and now I'm a senior. So it's funny that I'm now caring for people, or at least working with children for the most part, but some people are my age. So it's funny how it comes full circle and where we're at right now. It's been a long time. It's been a long journey, but like Andrew said, we've helped thousands of people, and the more we do it and the older that I get, the more I appreciate actually what I'm doing and the need for what we're doing. So it really is an honor to be doing this, to helping these people, and there's a lot of people that need our help.
You know, Gary, it's a great way for us to tee it up. So you've been at it about 5 years longer than we have, and as a company, a lot longer than I have, about 14 years longer than me. But I want you to get into, in the second segment, I want you to dig into AlzBetter and why you created AlzBetter and why AlzBetter is better for home care companies and families to make their lives the best that they can be. You're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. I'm your host, Bob Roth. Gary Skole, Andrew Dubler's in the house. Stick around. We're down one. We got 3 more to go. We'll be right back.
Now back to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Cypress Home Care Solutions, Bob Roth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. I'm your host, Bob Roth. We're in our second segment, and I've got Andrew Dubler and Gary Skole here in the house with me. They are with Home to Stay and AlzBetter. And if you missed that first segment, you really missed a lot, because Andrew did a great job of painting the story about how he got into this space, how I assisted him in a way, and really, more importantly, how he and Gary connected 13 to 14 months after he got started in the business. And they've been joined at the hip now for at least 13 years, and really making a difference in the lives of the people that they serve in their community. But more importantly, they're making a difference in the lives of people like me and other home care companies, because they created this company called AlzBetter. So we ended that first segment. You know, Gary was talking a little bit about his background and how he got into the business. Started right out of high school. But I really would like you to pick up on that, Gary, and really talk to us about how AlzBetter really came to be, and what is an AlzBetter anyway?
Thanks, Bob. I'd been running my home care business for 20 years when I came across a case that should have been a pretty routine case, a senior woman living with dementia, 24/7, round-the-clock, home run kind of case that, as a private duty home care agency, that's what we're all looking for. To make this long story short, this very sweet little old lady that should have been a slam dunk just tore apart our caregivers one by one, and we went through about a dozen caregivers in a week. My office staff was threatening to quit if we kept this client on, and as a business owner, I certainly wanted to keep this client on. And the daughter that had called me, we certainly wanted to help her, but we failed. And failed miserably, and our reputation was damaged when the daughter went to the referral source that sent this case to us. And it was really at that point that I recognized that people living with dementia require different care. You can't do the same assessment, the same care plan. You can't train your caregivers the same way. It's a truly, truly challenging situation, an unfortunate situation, but it's so challenging. And, when we think of dementia, we think of Alzheimer's, and most people think it's actually the same thing. And Alzheimer's is just one type of dementia, and what makes it so tricky is that they could have Alzheimer's or Lewy body or vascular or frontotemporal or any type of dementia, or they could have a mixture of Alzheimer's and vascular, or Alzheimer's and Lewy body, or Alzheimer's and frontotemporal, or vascular and Lewy body. And you can see that if you start putting all these different combinations together, it gets incredibly difficult to help with. And medication, certainly 13, 14 years ago, didn't really do anything. And even to this date, they're not super successful unless in very early stages, and also very expensive. So after that failure, it really opened my eyes to the need to do a better job, and that this population needed extra care, extra services. And I just really wanted to train my own staff to do a better job caring for this population. But it was really at that point that I recognized that I really wasn't alone. In fact, I was pretty much in the majority. Nobody knew how to care for this population. It's such a challenging population. And the unfortunate thing, and even to this day, maybe even more so, because 14 years ago, there was probably half the number of home care agencies that are out there, and today there's close to 30,000 private duty home care agencies. And what I always say is if you went to 29,900 of their websites, they're all going to say they're dementia experts. And they're all going to say, if you have a loved one living with dementia, we know how to do it. And the reality is they maybe do an hour or two of training with the video, and now they're dementia experts. And they're far from it. And unfortunately, the public doesn't know the difference. And when they call these people expecting to get expert care for their loved one, and they're getting a home health aide that maybe has an hour of dementia training, maybe they have 6 hours, and the reality is they all got it at one time. They forgot 90% of it, 6 months later. The families are not getting dementia experts. And it's really sad, because then they end up spending a lot of money. They go through agency after agency and end up putting their person into assisted living with a memory care unit or a skilled nursing facility or somewhere that they didn't want to put them. And the reality is maybe they didn't have to if the agency did know what they were doing and if they were training their caregivers properly. But, in my opinion, you need a program that more than just provide training. You need expertise and you need systems and you need all of these things. And if that is available to the agencies that are providing care, my feeling is they could do a better job and these families could get better care. And that was really the idea behind AlzBetter, is how can we help these senior care providers do a better job? How can we give them the systems and the tools that they need? And that's what we did. We created a second company that does exactly that, and that's really what our goal is to really make dementia care better, to get the providers, give them the tools that they need to be really great dementia providers, and that's really what AlzBetter is about.
No, and I thought you did a great job of explaining it, and, I don't want to really get into the nuts and bolts of it, but getting caregivers to, one, come in for training is sometimes a real challenge. And once you get them in, Gary, I think you taught me this a long time ago, the retention that one has of the lessons that are learned is somewhere in the neighborhood of 20%, right? So, how do you get them to retain the syllabus and the knowledge that you're walking them through? And again, it's been a while since I've seen AlzBetter, and I want you to bring me up to speed on what you guys are doing a little bit differently. But I think the piece that we, meaning at Cypress, when we first worked with you, was the videos. And, video is just so powerful when you can demonstrate how not to do something and then demonstrate how it can be done. If you could take us through that and really, take us through a lot of the learnings that you've had, because we've learned a lot. And yeah, you mentioned about the fact that we have 30,000 home care companies now. And back, 14, 15 years ago, there may have been half of that many. But we also have at least double, if not triple, the amount of people that have dementia. And that number's just going to continue to grow.
Correct.
Hey,
Yeah.
Gary, before you take that, let me just jump in for a quick second, because one important, just to dovetail with some of the things that you said, because an important concept of the program, too, that a lot of home care agencies miss is that the AlzBetter program does a wonderful job of being holistic and looping the family members into that training. It's not just about training those caregivers, it's about educating and training those families, and that's what really helps drive successful outcomes.
That's a great point, Andrew. And actually I take this from Andrew, is that, if we get a great case, it's 40 hours a week, and as a home care agency, we look at that as a real win. 40 hours a week is a really nice case for us. The reality is, if it's 40 hours a week, there's still 128 hours that somebody else is providing care, usually a family member or somebody else, but often a family member. And if we're not empowering that family member, if we're not educating that family member so that they understand how to deal with mom or how to deal with the spouse, then they're going to struggle and the job isn't done. And yes, we can do our piece hopefully well, but if they're not doing their piece, it's most likely going to fail as well. So that, Andrew, you're right, is a very big part. And one of the differentiators with our program is that we really do believe that we need to educate our staff, but we need to educate the families. And as you were saying, Bob, my opinion on training has really, really changed, and it continues to change with the advent of AI, and we can talk about that as well. But the one of the original concepts that we had was that when you load up training in the beginning, and this really came from my own personal experience when I was trying to educate myself, again, when I was in the business for 20 years and trying to learn how to teach my staff, I bought a Teepa Snow, and this is going to date me, I bought a Teepa Snow DVD. So I don't even own a DVD player anymore. But I bought a Teepa Snow DVD, and it was great. And it was so chock full of information, and I literally had to watch it 5 times. And even after watching it 5 times, I still couldn't retain everything. And I said, my staff is never going to watch a video like this 5 times. And if they do, they're not going to learn all that much. And there's states out there that are trying to do a really great job. In Washington State, I think it's either 6 or 8 hours that they require their caregivers, the agencies, to provide dementia training for their caregivers, which I applaud them for. However, if you give somebody 8 hours of training, 6 months later, they're going to remember a very small amount of that. So we've set up a very different process on how to do that.
So you hear the music. And just for our listeners, Teepa Snow is a dementia trainer expert in this space. So just want to let you know, we're halftime here at Health Futures. Andrew Dubler, Gary Skole, I told you it goes fast. Stick around. We got 2 more segments. We'll be right back. I hope you're enjoying the show. This is your host, Bob Roth, managing partner and co-founder of Cypress Home Care Solutions. If you have any questions about the topics that are discussed during the show, visit us online at cypresshomecare.com or give us a call at 602-264-8009. We are entering now the second half of our show, so stay tuned for more helpful information to assist you with your aging loved ones.
Now back to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Cypress Home Care Solutions, Bob Roth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Health Futures Taking Stock in You. I'm your host, Bob Roth, and if you're just tuning in, I've got Gary Skole and Andrew Dubler here in the studio with me. They're actually coming in through technology. They're back in Cherry Hill, New Jersey right now, and they run an incredible home care company called Home to Stay, and they also are doing this really, really clever and innovative dementia care program called AlzBetter. And, Gary did a great job in the second segment really teeing that up. And, Gary, I can't thank you enough for spelling that and really sharing with us your journey as to why you created this so that you could do more for these families that you're helping with home care. But at the same time, I first of all, I want all our listeners, if you missed the first half, go up to our website at cypresshomecare.com. Click on the media button right below its radio show. You'll catch this and many, many more. But I don't profess to know this, and you are more of my dementia expert here in the room. There's 70 types of dementia? I mean, Alzheimer's represents about 70% of them, but you mentioned Lewy bodies and frontal lobe and all these other dementias that do happen out there, right? Maybe you can give us just a little bit more information as to what is dementia and Alzheimer's.
Sure. So dementia is really an umbrella term, and dementia is not Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's is the most common type of dementia, as you described. But there are multiple types of dementia, and actually what they're now finding is that mixed dementias are probably the most common type of dementia, or what they're finding. And so that means that when somebody dies, and if they do an autopsy on the brain, what they're recognizing is it's not only Alzheimer's, it's often Alzheimer's and vascular seems to be the most common combination. but there's all these different combinations that are out there. So yes, there are many types of dementias, and one of the things that I thought was really, really interesting that an article. So part of what we do is I go through the news literally every single day, and when there's something I think is newsworthy in the topic of dementia, we put it on our blog and we put it into our app. And recently, what they found was that people with a liver disease, actually 13% of the dementias are reversible. And people don't recognize that. So if you do have a liver disease and a cognitive impairment, there's a very good chance it's not actually dementia. It's just due to the liver disease, and it is a reversible situation, and it's a really, really big number. So I thought that was really interesting, and one of the things that we've been recently promoting to anybody that, again, may have some type of liver disease.
No, that's really interesting to hear. So, I want to talk about in this segment, I want to talk about the fact that the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services recognizes the fact that families, and there are about 15 to 16 million families that are providing the really difficult work every single day caring for someone that has dementia. And, you know this better than I do. There are some forms of dementia that are just really hard on the family member. And, whether it be Lewy bodies or frontal lobe, I mean, all the dementias are hard, don't get me wrong, but these are especially more difficult. And, for CMS, which is the acronym for Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, to recognize that and to offer a program where we can provide respite care for that family caregiver. And respite, for people that don't understand, is giving them the relief to be themselves. And I want to tee this up by saying that there's a data point that AARP came up with about 12 years ago, and I haven't seen if it's been revised, but couples caring for one another, 65 and older, without outside help from family members, friends, neighbors, or even professional home care companies like Cypress or Home to Stay, 63% of the time the caregiver predeceases the care recipient. And for CMS to recognize this and to provide help is huge. And I would love for you to share with us what you're doing, because you can participate on GUIDE in two different fronts. You have the home care agency, and you also have the AlzBetter training program. So please, if you would, indulge me and our listeners, what are you guys doing with the GUIDE program?
Andrew, if you want to take the respite side.
Sure. So, one of the nice parts about the GUIDE program is that they offer respite care for the families that are participating that's covered by Medicare. So it's not a lot, but it is something. And I think it's about 80 hours for the calendar year. So if you think about that, hour and a half a week, but where that could really, they could use that, I'd like to use the term like a Lego set. They can do, 2 40-hour weeks. They can do 4 hours every other week. They could do it as needed. So it is something for them to use and help them, as Bob said, for those caregivers that are so stressed out and burning the candle at both ends, that gives them a bit of a lifeline.
It does indeed, and certainly, just because this industry we're in is so so much involved in having acronyms. GUIDE actually stands for Guiding an Improved Dementia Experience. That's how the acronym of GUIDE came up with. So, Gary, if you could take us through what AlzBetter is doing in this GUIDE world that we've got now.
So, Bob, we talked about in the previous segment at the very, very end about the differentiators, the way that we train. And, one of the things that we do is we help to identify through one of our assessment tools where families are struggling the most from a dementia perspective. And then what we can do is we can send, whether it's a family member or our professional home health aides, our care partners that we hire, if we can then send either one of them what we call a lesson, and via text message or email, nothing that they have to download, that addresses that particular issue in a very short and direct way. And there's actually validated studies that do show that if you can provide this type of training to families, it's very, very effective. It's really what they're looking for. So they don't have to go searching the internet and they're not sure what to believe and what not to believe. They don't have to watch, as I was talking about, a 2-hour DVD or a 2-hour lesson, and only a small percentage of it pertains to what their needs are. So what we are doing is we're helping these guide providers. And what I really think is great about Guide is they have a clinical component, a physician or a nurse practitioner or a physician's assistant or somebody of that nature that understands the clinical piece. And then they partner them with what they call a navigator. And that navigator is a social worker or just a non-clinical person that understands dementia from a non-clinical way. And what this navigator can now do is help identify where those families are struggling, and then they're using our system. So we are now contracted with several guide providers, and they use our tools to be able to identify where the families are struggling and then send them that lesson. And it's a really meaningful way to support those families. And one of the things that I'm hoping will happen is that we're going to make these navigators both more efficient and effective at the same time, because if they're effective but they're not efficient and the physician's office or hospital or whoever it is that's providing this care loses money every time they see a new patient that's a guide model, I just don't see them doing this for a long period of time. So we're really hoping to be able to help these guide providers do what they're supposed to do, help these navigators support the families they're trying to support in a very efficient and effective way, and that's one of the things that we're doing. One of the other things that we're also doing, though, is also empowering them with AI. And we have what we call our Abby AI coach. And now what we've done is we've uploaded a lot of the manuals that we've written, and we've trained our own version of our dementia coach. So it's not simply going into the internet and looking for things. And unfortunately, ChatGPT or Claude or whoever it is, they're still hallucinating, and you can't always trust everything that they're producing. So this is called a closed system where they're primarily using our content, and we know what they're telling the families because they're, again, using our content. And now whether it's a navigator that maybe doesn't have enough experience and is trying to help families, they can type in their situation, and now they can say, oh, this is how I manage that properly. Or they can send our app to that family, and the family can do it themselves. Again, Andrew talked about how we want to empower the families. So the families actually get our app, which has one of the options in it is to have Abby tell them how to handle certain situations. So it both empowers the navigators that need maybe support from a different perspective, or family members at 11 o'clock at night where mom's agitated and they don't know what to do. They now have a 24/7 expert in their pocket, and we're really trying to take advantage of technology and AI in that way.
Well, I love that. And you know, the thing is that, and you know this more than anything, is each client that you have that has dementia or Alzheimer's is like a snowflake. Every one of them is very different. And, you know, being able to be a resource for them and help them through their family member, their loved one's journey is so imperative. It's so important. It's an imperative for them to be able to make those days the best they can be. You hear the music, gosh, it goes fast, doesn't it, Gary and Andrew?
I can't believe it.
you know what I want to do in this
Right.
last segment, I want to talk a little bit about the future. You know, I want to talk about where we see home care and dementia care going in the future. You've been listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. I'm your host, Bob Roth. Stick around. Andrew Dubler and Gary Skole are here for one more segment. We'll be right back.
Now back to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Cypress Home Care Solutions, Bob Roth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. I'm your host, Bob Roth, and we're in our fourth segment now. It's hard to believe that time just really flies by when you're having fun, and it really is great to have Andrew and Gary here with me. Andrew Dubler, Gary Skole, home to stay out of Cherry Hill, New Jersey. They cover that whole New Jersey market area, the South Jersey market area, and they have a global footprint with AlzBetter. And you know, if you missed both those or all three of those segments, go up to our website at cypresshomecare.com, click on the media button, and then right below its radio show. You'll catch this one and many, many more. So, guys, I want to really focus in on where you guys see the future going. I mean, look, you're using artificial intelligence at AlzBetter. I think that is so cool, and it's so advanced that you can give these tools to the caregivers, right? They can have it right in their pocket. And, when a escalation happens, that's what we call it in home care, when something goes awry with a client and a caregiver, they don't usually happen between 8 and 5. It just doesn't work that way. It usually happens at 10 o'clock at night or maybe 9:30, weekends, whatever. But I think that's fascinating, and you guys are adopting and utilizing these tools and innovations. But can you, and this is open for both of you guys, where do you see, implementing tech into the way we deliver care, but even more so the staggering numbers, the fact that the 65-year-old population between now and 2050 is going to double, and the 85-year-old population is going to nearly quadruple? What are you guys seeing?
I'm going to go first, and then I'm going to pass it to Gary to talk more about the tech pieces. But I just want to point out, Gary had mentioned earlier, about the approximately 30,000 agencies and 29,900 plus are dementia experts that do an hour or so of training. That's the reality of our industry today. Just like the guide program is doing, with their navigators at Home to Stay through AlzBetter, we've been implementing what we call a coach that sits in between the families and the caregivers. That's just been has provided us with just abundant positive outcomes and really helping those families. So it's not tech, it's not fancy, but so few agencies are even doing something like that. And I feel like that makes a big difference. So very low tech, but I still feel like that type of education and going forward the next 5 years, we're going to be seeing more of that.
So Andrew, I mean, look, tech is happening all around us. What's new today is old tomorrow. And you talk about a coach, and I just want to clarify, is this a human or is this an AI agent? Because we get these AI agents that sound like they're really human. So is this this is a human?
But we have both.
Okay.
We have both. But I was talking about the human one, and now I'll let Gary talk about the AI one. And there's a role for both of them.
100%.
But being able to have an individual to go out, like you had said, at 6 o'clock on a Saturday when all the family members and stakeholders could be present, to sit down around that table and be present with that family, that's really tough to duplicate.
Yeah,
there's roles for the other ones that Gary's going to pass that baton to Gary now. But what's nice is we have both.
Yeah, and we have, again, a couple different ways that we're using AI here. Just staying with the AI piece for right now. As I was talking about before, we do have a coach, and that coach can be either you type in via text, I have a question, and it gives you a text answer. And we've, again, trained that AI so that whether it's the family member or and our coach, quite honestly, our expert coach, before he goes into the home and he knows the situation, he actually does still use that. He types it into our AI because what he finds is that it reminds him, here's how you may want to handle that. And he said, I didn't think about that. And it gives him a different way and he's a dementia expert. It's still helping him to think about different ways to approach that. So it's really interesting how effective that can be. One of the other tools, though, that we're really just playing with, we haven't even really officially launched it yet, is our AI avatars. And the avatars are humans that they can speak to, and they can have a person living with dementia can have a conversation with these people. And it's amazing because the avatars, first of all, we're training the avatars to answer inappropriate dementia speak, so to speak. So if somebody says, I want my mother, the incorrect answer is going to be, well, your mother's dead. You're 85 years old. Your mother died 50 years ago.
Yeah.
Our avatar now, unfortunately, many of the untrained caregivers out there are going to give that answer and say, your mother's dead. And we've seen them doing that.
To this day, yeah.
Yeah, and we've seen them doing that. So what we're going to be able to do is they're going to be able to talk to their avatar and say, "Where's my mother?" And that avatar will say, "Tell me about your mother," and answer it in a correct way, so that we can actually train this person, this not human person, but this companion, to have correct conversations with these individuals. And when this person living with dementia tells the story for the 100th time and the daughter just can't hear it again, or the caregiver that we've sent out gives them a real, I know, you told me this already, and gives them a really sharp answer, and now we have a fight that starts out because the person gets agitated because she never thinks she told this. Well, the avatar is going to listen to it like it's the first time, and they're going to have this wonderful conversation, and it counts towards socialization. I mean, I have videos of a woman talking about the Jersey Shore and fireworks and all the great times she's had, and they're having these conversations. And that's where I think a lot of the future is going to be with this, is building these types of things, whether it's a robot or whether it's just a screen they're talking to, but really taking advantage of this.
You know, the voice features is so cool that you can have someone that can speak really upbeat and really, in a way that energizes the person in a very positive way on the other end of the phone. Well, listen, we've got about a minute and a half left, and I want to just punt it over to you guys. Football metaphor. It's almost football season. I know you guys are Eagles fans, as some people call it. But what do you guys see? Or what is there a question I haven't asked, or is there some lasting thought you want to leave our listeners as we close the show?
Andrew?
Yeah, I'll just say that, being in home care, I'm really excited what the future holds for home care. I feel that this next generation of baby boomers that's going to be aging over the next 20 and 30 years is a cohort of individuals that want to, be at home, enjoy their home, and technology, as we touched on, is going to enable them to do that. So I'm really excited what the future holds.
Gary?
And I agree. I think that the today's senior is maybe not quite as technologically accepting, although they are certainly a lot better than they were even 5 years ago. But in the next 5 to 10 years, I think the groups will be, and I think the technology will be so much better that this combination of humans and technology together is going to make providing senior care a great thing, an even better thing, I should say, because it's already great. And
that's you and me. We're gonna make senior care great again, and it's because you and I are already there. Gary
right.
And Andrew, it's so great having you on the show, and it's so great to see you, and I hope to see you in Dallas in October 20th and 21st for the Home Care Association of America's annual conference and trade event. You've been listening to Health Futures Taking Stock in You. Gary Skole, Andrew Dubler, make it a great day. Have a great weekend. We will be back next Friday.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Bob. Thanks for everything.
There's no place like home. You've been listening to Bob Roth's Health Futures. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call Cypress Home Care Solutions at 602-264-8009. That's 602-264-8009. Or visit cypresshomecare.com. Be sure to join Health Futures with Bob Roth every Friday at noon, right here on Money Radio 1510 and 105.3 FM.